Okay, let's unpack a truly extraordinary story today. We're doing a deep dive into the history of the Syro-Malabar Church. I mean, one of the oldest Christian communities anywhere.
Yeah, it really is.
And our mission really is to understand how this ancient faith, so deeply rooted in India, managed to keep its unique identity, how it survived centuries of, well, immense challenges and external pressures.
Yeah.
We've looked at a lot of historical accounts for this.
And what's so fascinating, I think, is that unique identity they ended up forging. You described it perfectly. Indian in culture, Christian in religion, and Syriac Oriental in liturgy and worship.
Right.
That synthesis, that's the real aha moment, isn't it? It's how they navigated everything without just disappearing.
And the origin story itself is just incredible. It traces directly back to St. Thomas the Apostle.
Mm-hmm.
Arising in India, they say, in 52 AD, he set up foundational churches in Kerala. And for centuries, this community was just known as the St. Thomas Christians, or Nazranis.
Right, the Nazran.
And they weren't directly under Rome initially. They were in communion with the church in the Persian Empire. And that really shaped their distinct Eastern Christian identity, pretty much independent of Latin influence for over 1,000 years.
Yeah, for a very long time. And before the Europeans showed up, these Nazranis, they had significant autonomy, both ecclesiastically and civilly.
How did that work?
Well, their affairs were mostly governed by the Yogam. That was an assembly, priests and lay people together.
Okay.
And here's a really interesting detail. Their canonical practices allowed for optional celibacy for their diocesan priests.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that custom, it just blended right in with both Eastern Christian traditions and, local Indian customs at the time. Even their church buildings often looked a bit like local temples, just subtly marked with a cross.
But then things changed dramatically. 16th century, the Portuguese arrive. How did that hit a community that had been so independent for so long?
Oh, it was a huge shift, often hostile, actually. The Portuguese missionaries, they looked at the St. Thomas Christians with, a lot of suspicion.
Right.
They saw their unique practices as errors that needed fixing, needed reforming, as they put it.
And this all sort of came to a head, didn't it, with that infamous event, the Synod of Diamper in June 1599. You described it as less reform and more cultural and political subjugation. What actually happened there? Why was it so damaging?
Well, yeah, subjugation is pretty accurate. It was a systematic push to Latinize them completely. Key decrees involved forcing the destruction of ancient Syriac texts. Just imagine losing generations of your written history, your liturgical books.
Oh, yeah.
And significant changes to their main worship service, the Holy Qurbana. Plus, they imposed clerical celibacy, which wasn't their tradition, and even condemned local Hindu ceremonies and customs that had become part of their cultural life.
So it wasn't just about theology.
No, not at all. It cut deep into their culture.
Which really raises that powerful question then. How far could this community actually be pushed?
And they gave a very dramatic answer. January 3rd, 1653, the Coonan Cross Oath. You have to picture this. Estimates range from maybe 25,000 up to 200,000 St. Thomas Christians gathered together.
Huge numbers.
Yeah, publicly swearing an oath, holding onto ropes tied to a cross that they would not obey the Latin Catholic hierarchy anymore. It was this incredibly visual, powerful act of resistance.
And that was the breaking point.
That led to the first permanent split. Yes, it created two main groups. The Syro-Malabarians, who eventually stayed in communion with the Pope, but with a liturgy that was heavily Latinized, though still based on their East Syriac tradition.
Okay.
And the Malankara Church, which over time adopted the West Syriac Rite, a different but related liturgical tradition.
So the Syro-Malabar Church, the ones who stayed with Rome but resisted Latinization, they then started this long journey to get their autonomy back, right?
Exactly. A long, persistent journey. And eventually it did pay off. Pope Leo XIII, he started setting up separate apostolic vicariates just for them in 1887. And then, crucially, in 1896, he appointed indigenous bishops. Actual Indian bishops for them, ending that direct European rule.
A huge step.
Massive. And that paved the way for them to be formally recognized as an autonomous Eastern Catholic Church in 1923, and then elevated to major archiepiscopal status in 1992.
So beyond the structure, the hierarchy, there was also this push to restore their liturgy.
Yes, absolutely. A major focus was liturgical restoration. They worked to reintroduce the original East Syriac liturgy for the Holy Korbana, the Raza Korbana Taxa, as it's known.
Okay.
It was approved back in 1957 and started being introduced in 1962. And this brought back unique elements like Pudankan's specific commemorations of saints and the Great Prostration, this really profound act of reverence.
And their calendar, too.
Yes, they also restored their distinct 9-season liturgical calendar, which is really foundational to their whole spiritual identity.
So from these ancient roots, through all that turmoil and resilience, where does the Syro-Malabar Church actually stand today? What does this migrant church idea look like now?
Well, today, it's actually the second largest Eastern Catholic Church in the world. Estimates are around 5.5 million members globally.
Wow.
And its diaspora, it's grown so much that it really has become a migrant church. They've established eparchies, which are like regional dioceses in places like Chicago in the U.S., Canada, Australia, Great Britain. It's a truly vibrant global community now.
What an absolutely incredible journey, enduring faith, that cultural synthesis we talked about, and just remarkable resilience.
It really is. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, you see this vibrant global Syro-Malabar church still sort of grappling with its identity in some ways, which raises, I think, an important question for you, the listener. How do ancient traditions like this, forged over millennia, having navigated such intense history, how do they continue to adapt and thrive and define themselves in our fast-paced, globalizing world, especially when, internal disagreements still pop up over core practices like the liturgy itself? What part of their unique journey stands out most to you?
Yeah, definitely something to think about. We hope this deep dive has given you a bit of a shortcut to being well-informed about this really fascinating intersection of faith, culture, and history.